Hello and welcome to Galaxy Advisors. The purpose of this video is to provide an example of how to use Condor's 3 Fetch Web menu. Let's begin with our overview. If you look at Earth's web activity, you would realize that there was just one website in August 1991 by Tim Berners-Lee. 23 years later, we have 1 billion websites in 2014, and it's estimated it's doubling every 18 to 24 months. Now, I have a couple reference links here to the web activity. You will find these links in the Show More text box beneath the video. So quite a bit, a mammoth amount of 1 billion websites. The total number of websites as of September 19, 2014 is 1,063,386,649. And you can find that live statistics as a counter clicks off the number of new websites at www.internetlivestats.com. Total number of websites. Again, this URL is in the Show More beneath in the YouTube text. So I imagine you have an area of interest. You can search for that area of interest by a word, by a phrase, by a word, phrase, and date altogether, or a particular website. A lot of possibilities to searching the web of those 1 billion sites and counting. So this is Condor 3's main menu at a glance. This represents all 7 menu items, and with a brief description that really describes what each menu item has beneath it. In particular, this web recording is going to be about the fetch menu, and particularly how to use the web fetcher for Condor. So if you click on fetch, you'll see a menu like this beneath it below, and then we're going to click the fetch web, and there are 4 basically windows that are going to walk you through to collect your web search. You're going to start off with a data set that you want to collect or store your web search in. There's going to be a parameter form we're going to go through in detail about how to set a number of different parameters. And then you're going to have a chance at the 3rd step to, given the first layer or depth 1 pages, to exclude them or to accept them and decide, well, I don't want these pages, I want only these. So you have a chance for selecting those. And then you're going to get a process message while it goes out and fetches these web pages for you. Overall, it assumes that you're going to start with the file menu twice. You're going to switch or to open an existing database. You're then going to go to the file menu and open an existing data set or create a new one. And again, for the Google CSE, requires a special personal API key. After you view a menu, you're going to get the Condor 3 GUI controls at your disposal. To the graph toolbar, indicated here in red, highlighted, gives you the ability to kind of relay out the graph, show arrows, select and move the entire graph, pick a node or edge, search by text. A lot of sophistication there in the graph toolbar. You can then actually change the node and edge color, shape, and indicate different options for labeling with the side pick menus indicated in blue here. And then the 3rd GUI is really the keypad gesture, so you can use 2 fingers to zoom in, zoom out. You can click on a single node and show its more node details, as well as click on an edge to show edge details. You can hover your cursor over a node and the information will be displayed in the lower right. So the 3 Condor GUI controls give you a lot more hands-on manipulation of that final visualization. Overall, some of the basic process menu steps. Though Condor requires no programming by the user, it is important to know a typical sequence of how to navigate these menus. So really they go from left to right, and you start with the file menu, kind of like that artistry. Condor is really kind of part art, part science, and just like an artist gets out its easel, sets it up, puts a canvas on it to start Condor. Every Condor session really begins with the file menu, and you use it twice. You click File and you switch to switch or create a new database. You either switch to an existing data set or create a new one. And in this case, we're going to then move next to the Fetch menu to fetch the websites based upon our query. Then we're going to move over to the View menu and say, well, what does that look like in the visualization. And then from there, in the red arrows indicate I can go back to the process data set, and I might want to calculate some centralities such as betweenness, closeness, or degree. I might go back and view that again and change the shape of the nodes based upon those centralities. Might go back and say, well, I want to eliminate some of these websites that I want to remove from the picture. I go back and view it again. I might then decide to go analyze these based upon .com, .net, or by domain and kind of collapse them. I could go back to the view menu and save an edited data set that I have. I can take screenshots of these visualizations. I can graph specific things, and I could export the graph. So there's a lot of interaction between the view, process, data set, and analyze. I finally then could say, well, I want to export this data set that I have as a .csv files for other analysis or data set properties. I might decide to go all the way back to the file menu and use a file export data set as a Condor data file. It has an extension .cdf for a backup or for sharing with someone else or to move to another computer. Or I might say, let's start with file, dataset, open dataset. We'll have some more sophisticated filtering options and to restart my analysis. So again, this is kind of a typical way in which to navigate these menus. Again, it doesn't require any programming, but it is important to know the basic sequence steps that a user would go through and use. Now, Condor has two Google APIs, Google AJAX and Google CSE. Question is, well, what is the difference? Well, Condor, the Google AJAX API is an older, and it's been documented that it's planned to be discontinued on September 29th, 2014, or really in a few days. Whether or not Google's going to actually retire it, I'm not sure, but that's what is the post notice. In contrast, Google CSE, their custom search engine, API is new, it's more sophisticated, and has more search options. For more details, again, see these URLs below the video under Show More. So let's do a typical sample web fetch. The first thing is to start your MySQL database. Step 2, start Condor 3. Step 3, in the main menu, click File, create a new database. Then in Step 4, enter database name such as, I have IoT, that stands for the Internet of Things. I've used _web. The important thing about a database name, it should be short, should not contain any spaces and no special characters except for an underscore is okay. Then click OK. In Step 5, in the main menu, click File, Dataset, New Dataset. In Step 6, enter dataset name, such as in my case I used IoT, standing for the Internet of Things, and then click OK. Again, the main thing is short, no spaces, no special characters except an underscore. Then in Step 6, click OK. Note that your dataset will have a green check next to it, and that green check means that it is an active dataset. Then in Step 7, on the main menu, click Fetch, Fetch Web for our particular case in this point, and then Web Fetcher will select your new dataset, and you just simply click Next. Now in Step 9 is really where you set a number of the parameters and actually insert your query. You notice at the top in red I have the two different choices. The one that's bulleted is the one that's active. I've indicated there's in green, which relates to the Google CSE, and again you have to have a personal key to obtain that. Hopefully you've done that in your installation. And the Condor 3 CSCX key, which is the key provided by Condor for everyone. And then you see the query window that you put in your query, which can be quite sophisticated. We'll talk more about that later. You can say the maximum number of results here. I set it at 100. And then you'll see something that says maximum depth, search results at depth 1, sources of backlinks at depth 2. At first, we recommend no bigger than 2 because it might take quite a while to get your search results. And then the Google CSE only options is that you can restrict based upon when Google crawled this. You can say, well, I want to only look at the sites that record in the last few days or weeks or months or years. You have 35 language selections that you can choose from, and you can restrict it to some 239 countries, along with either saving the snippet, saving the content on it, or merge the actors of the same domain. The actors in this case is a website, and click Next. Here's a listing of the Google's custom search engine, 35 language selections. Again, it's a drop-down box, but this is a simple listing for you to look at, and notice that Chinese is both available and simplified in traditional format. For the 239 country list, I've included the URL here, but again, you can see that URL found underneath the Show More to list those 239 country selections out that you have. So if after I collected this search, I went to the View menu and said Static View, and this is the Google AJAX query for Internet of Things on July 10th, 2014. I've highlighted, I right-clicked on these individual nodes and labeled them. And again, these nodes are one step away. I have the query IoT there in the center, and so anything that's actually one step away actually has that query of IoT on that web page. Once you go to the second step, it may or may not have that. Of course, a couple tips now to improve a Condor Web Search. Given that million pages, often you might get search results that you are not interested in, was close, and say, well, how can I actually refine it? So 2 tips. One is to know how to construct a Google search query using the Google search operators and punctuation symbols. In the next slide, I'll explain those in more detail. And then know what a Condor 3 means by the search depth in interpreting the results. So I'll explain that as well. So let's looking at how can I improve searching for Google. Well, know the search operators. Now, Google search has a number of operators. You can use the AND operator. Yeah, I want this term and this term, so both terms must appear on that web page. I can use or, this or that term. I can put a phrase in double quotes, and that says make sure that phrase is exactly like that on that web page. So it's helpful if you're interested in a phrase. You could also put a web URL in quotes and say I want to look for those websites that have that URL as text on its page. You can use the hyphen in a term, and that means exclude those websites that have that term on it. I can use the word site : in a URL after that, so I said just search for that website. So I'm looking for pages on that website that are just at that website. I can say link : so search the sites that are linked to this. I can use the word related : and so find me similar sites to this. I can use the star or the asterisk as a wildcard carrier. I can use 2 periods that serve as a date range. So a lot of sophistication in searching the web, those billion websites, for exactly what you want. I've indicated the Google support.google page that helps give you examples of these search operators in action. And then also the punctuation and symbols here also provide some more sophisticated searching, and you can find some examples of those as well. The bottom line is practice using the Google search operators, punctuation, and symbols to improve your search results, that you have a better selection of those billion pages, a subset that you're looking for. The second tip is to know what search depth means in interpreting the results. We see this statement that says maximum depth, so on. And really, depth is the number of steps away from the search string to a web page. Specifically, a web depth of 1 means that the search string is found on that page. A depth of 2 means that this page is 2 steps away from the search string and may or may not contain the search string itself. So at depths 2, 3, or higher, these sites have a web connection to your sites that you found in the first depth, but may not contain the search string. So when you're starting to do content analysis and so on, and you have the second and third, it might really distort your results because there may or may not be on those pages. So only at depth 1 are you assured that the site contains the search content. For example, I have that query Internet of Thing. I know at the first step away, those pages contain Internet of Thing on that page. And then at depth 2, it's really the backlinks, those pointing back to that site's, the first layer or the first depth of 1 are connected to it, but again, may or may not contain the search string. Also, it's important to note that Condor 3 prompts you in this selection, the first layer, depth 1, that said, do you want these sites or not? So you got some filtering capability when you go through those steps. So again, depth Depth 1 means yes, that term, the search that is on that page, the backlink sites may not contain it. A service which lists a site's backlinks, some people are always interested in, well, what sites are connected to that? You can go to www.backlinkwatch.com, put in your URL, click on backlinks, and it's going to start listing out those backlinks to that website. Now let's come back to if I search for that Internet of Things and I click View, Static View, with that Google AJAX back on July 10th. Here was a sample of it, and I highlighted, right-clicked on these nodes so you can see what were some of the major sites. And again, those at the second step may or may not contain that term of Internet of Things. Now let's go look at the Condor CSE API. Again, there's two things. If we bullet the Google CSE, then other options come into focus. You have to have your personal Google CSE key. It will be displayed here. The Condor CSE CX key will be displayed. And then you put in your queries, such again, the Internet of Things. I put a maximum results of 100. There you could have a depth of 2. And this time I could actually say I'm going to restrict this to months and just for the past 6 months. Again, could select a particular language and country, and quite often my personal choice is just to save the snippet because I just want to just look at just what had to do with a shorter phrase of what's on that web page rather than all the content which may or may not be relevant to what I'm searching on, and I'm not interested in merging these actors at this time. Clicking next, here's the result. You can see in the upper left corner I had IoT AJAX available. I have the IoT custom search engine that I've done, file selected, and then later on I actually merged the two using a dataset merge. But here again, you can use the GUI controls to further investigate and explore this web result. Another tip is if you right-click on a node and you select the node details, you can then copy and paste the URL into your browser to read the full article. So here's an example. I right-clicked on a node. I got the name of, which in this case is the full URL available, and then I pasted that into my browser as shown in the window below, and you can see the exact page then that it takes you to. So very, very easy to say, oh, I see this website, I see this article, I can read the snippet, I can then go right to that article and read it. Another tip is that you can use the export menu and export the .csv or actor to list out the articles, names, URL, snippet, title for download or for follow-up. So again, if you go to the export menu, say export CSV, and choose the actors, here's a sample where sometimes it's much easier just to kind of read down these snippets, then have a direct in an Excel spreadsheet to go to those URLs to find those exact articles about your search that you're interested in. Again, it's part art and science using Condor. Again, no programming is required, but it does helpful to know the basic pattern or sequences that a user will use. This has been about the Condor Fetch, and particularly the Fetch Web option that you have available to you. And we hope that you are able to use the Condor Fetch sophistication, the Google search, to explore and retrieve out of the billion-plus and counting websites your area of interest. And with that, with Galaxy Advisors, we hope you enjoy the use of Condor 3 and in your web investigation.